Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. My Karen stepdaughter scammed me for $10,000. After that, am I the jerk for telling my friend I don't care about her feelings? And after that, $6 per week. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets her Disney Plus account canceled. You've taken this too far, Reddit boy. So please punch that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My Karen stepdaughter scammed me for $10,000. Fake names for privacy. I have 3 kids, Bea, 23 female, Amy, 20 female, and Liz, 15 female. Bea is technically my stepdaughter, and I only mention it because it's relevant to the story. My husband Ben and I have a deal with our kids that as long as they are studying, we will pay for all their expenses, and they may be at home rent-free. If they feel that college isn't for them, then they need to get a job. We feel it's their life and their choice, but Ben and I won't enable them to do nothing. Amy is earning a degree, and Liz is still in high school. Bea told us that college wasn't for her. We said okay and helped her apply for jobs. She got hired as a receptionist, but only works part-time. We just asked that she pitch in for groceries, under $75 a month, and help with chores. She was not charged for her room or for water or electric bills. We also paid for her car and its insurance. Bea only had to pay for gas. She also has all of her essentials, soap, toothpaste, etc., provided by us. She needs to follow the house rules. Be kind and respectful to every member of the house. You may stay up past 10 p.m., but must be quiet since other people have work or school. Turn off devices you aren't using to conserve electricity and improve the Wi-Fi. We don't approve of smoking, but if you're going to do it, you have to do it outside and dispose of it properly, etc. Ben and I always believed that our rules were fair and reasonable. That was all the background. Here's the reason I'm posting. In January, Bea approached us explaining that our occupational center was offering courses, and she wanted to take them so she could become certified and get a better paying job. The tuition for the course, plus extra fees because of books and other required supplies, would come out to over $10,000. Ben and I wrote her a check because, as I said, we will help all of our kids with their education. We asked about 2 weeks ago if she would be having a graduation ceremony, and Bea replied that she didn't know. Ben and I called the occupational center to ask so we could make sure to get the day off work. We asked for 3 different workers who all confirmed that the course Bea claimed to have been enrolled in hadn't been offered at that center for years. We do more digging and discover that Bea had gambled away most of the money and spent the rest on things that go against our rules. Needless to say, we were livid with her. We couldn't believe that she would lie and betray our trust like that. We told Bea that we had expected all the money paid back by the end of the year and for her to pay us a $400 monthly rent. If not, she's out of the house. Time to grow up, be an adult, and take accountability. Bea's biological mom, Zoe, is calling me a jerk and trying to make it seem as if I'm the wicked stepmother and just hate Bea. She's saying things like I've turned Ben against Bea and Bea can't do anything fun anymore because of the rent rule. Ben and I feel Bea needs some serious boundaries, but Zoe's words have made me doubt myself. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You know you're never gonna see that money, right? Bea lied to you to keep living rent-free, and she scammed you out of $10,000 on top of that. I'd kick her out right now, not wait 9 months for her to cause more mischief. By the way, in the future, pay the tuition, residence, books, etc. bills directly rather than cutting the student a check. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Bea? Please let us know. If biological mom has such a strong opinion, maybe Bea should move in with her. Am I the jerk for telling my friend I don't care about her feelings? I'm getting married in 2 weeks. Last week was my bachelor party and several of my friends attended, women and men. During the party, one of my female friends, let's give her the name Kelly, got very drunk and confessed to me how she's not happy that I'm getting married and that she thinks my future wife is not a good match for me. She also confessed she's been in love with me since we were 21, now we're 27, and that it hurt her feelings how I never realized and never did anything about it. Due to the fact that she was drunk, I completely ignored what she said, and I was like, fine, okay, whatever, at that moment. I waited till she got sober to see if she'd say anything about this again. 2 days after the party, she texted me and asked me if I thought about what she had said. I told her to elaborate just to make sure she's talking about her confession. She was indeed talking about it, and I told her exactly what I thought. I told her I don't care what she thinks about me and my fiance being a good match, and she's not the best judge if she claims that she's in love with me. I also told her that I truly don't care about her feelings towards me, and I don't know what she expected to achieve. She was shocked to see me responding like that, and she was like, "You don't need to be rude about it." I replied, telling her that of course I'll be rude. She's trying to ruin my wedding by thinking confessing to me will change something. Told her to come back to reality and realize she's not playing in a movie and her confession is embarrassing. And instead of letting it go and blaming it on the alcohol, she pushed it and expected to see whether she'd actually have succeeded. I told her at this point I don't care about her at all. That girl is apparently exposing me to her friends. She didn't tell them the whole story, and I had to explain to everyone what she had really said and expected. My friends kept insisting that I acted like a jerk, and just because I'm getting married, that gives me no right to invalidate my friends' feelings towards me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I also want to clarify one thing. Kelly has not been a good person towards my fiance at all, especially during our first years together. She only fixed her attitude after I had several fights with her regarding boundaries. Due to her fixed attitude, I believe she changed truly. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Kelly? Please let us know.
Kelly Bobelli, V5 Bobelli, B.
$6 per week. This is from a few years back, but it's a good one. I was working as a shipwright at the time, which, if you're not familiar with the term, means I was basically a nautical carpenter. A carpenter in a shipyard. Well, it was a union job. Everyone in the yard got paid the same, but since shipwrights generally bring bags of their own personal tools to the job, we got paid an extra 15 cents an hour to compensate us for wear and tear. You just write OT on your time card at the end of the day, so the payroll department knew to put you down at the own tools rate. Anyway, it seemed to me at the time to be a fairly reasonable setup. So one Friday, the foreman says that the yard isn't going to be paying the own tools bonus any longer. Seemed kind of petty to me, but there wasn't anything much to be done about it. So at quitting time, I just took my bags with me and went home. In other words, I took home all my saws, squares, drivers, basically everything that is required to do any shipwright work. I didn't really give it another thought until Monday morning rolled around, and the foreman was assisting tasks for the day. He tells me, "Okay, OP, the some such boat is sitting out behind Dry Dock 9. They need a cabinet of some sort built in their wheelhouse. Go ahead and get after it." I say, "No problem. I'm just going to need a saw, a square, a driver, a pencil." You see where this is going. So the foreman just stares for a second and says, "Where are all your tools?" "Well, you said we weren't getting paid to bring our own bags anymore, so I took mine home. What's the problem?" This guy spent the better part of 2 days searching for enough equipment for me to be able to get this project started. And even then, the tools he found were just worn out junk, so everything took 3 times as long to accomplish. I spent the 2 days methodically sweeping out the shop, about 35 times. We were getting paid roughly $40 an hour at the time, so I figured the yard spent about $600 paying me to sweep the shop repeatedly in order to avoid paying me $6 per week to keep performing my actual job. If that's not good management, I don't know what is. I had a work friend from 2 jobs back suddenly tell me point blank on the ride home that he would no longer be paying me gas money because I'm charging him too much. I didn't bother arguing with him as he tended to get into these kinds of moods. When we got to his house, I wished him good night and good luck finding another ride. He laughed it off and said I was a funny guy. Next morning, I drove straight to work instead of swinging by to pick him up. I had enough time to get myself a pre-work snack and a drink. While I was enjoying my treat in the break room before work, I got a text asking me where I was. I said I was at work and stopped answering texts. He had a slice of humble pie and said he would pay my rates. I did some math to break down how much it was costing me to drive to pick him up. Turns out I was asking for too little gas money for how much his leg of the trip was costing me. So I increased my rates, and funnily enough, he didn't argue this time. I was told to do what I needed to do, so I did it. This is very recent. I was living in a very bad part of a major metropolitan city that has lots of bad parts. After I moved in, I started noticing a lot of things that were unsafe. Most of the things I brushed aside because they didn't necessarily affect me. 3 things I complained about were the fact that the common areas and most of the bedrooms had no smoke detectors. Then, because I get home when it's very dark, I complained about the porch lights not working. I was promised over and over that this would be fixed, but it never was. I pressed harder and threatened to call the city. I also withheld my rent at this point. The landlord, she was a lady, told me,
There's nothing wrong with the house. Do what you need to do.
so I did. I called the city. An inspector came out and I showed him around the property. There were areas I couldn't give him access to, like the garage or the other tenants' rooms. He took lots of pictures and pointed out dozens of safety issues and building code violations. Turns out, this slumlord, referring to the owner, converted a 2-story house, 4-bed, 2-bath, into a 3-story house with 9 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms with no permits from the city. He, the owner, also had the home classified as an owner-occupied, single-family home, although it was clearly not, as there was no owner occupancy and there were 10 unrelated roommates. The landlord, the lady, harassed me through the whole process. She took my parking spot away and pitted other roommates against me. To make matters worse, she told everyone I wasn't paying rent. So now I have all these jerks ganging up on me. It was so bad that I couldn't be in any of the common areas for even 1 minute without being harassed. I also got a bunch of notices accusing me of random things and an eviction notice because I wasn't paying rent. The report from the city came out and it had over a dozen violations, including some very serious ones. It was going to cost him tens of thousands of dollars to repair the house to get it up to standard. The house started to become safer. There were smoke detectors, railings for the stairs, working porch lights, a carbon monoxide alarm, and he was forced to put a railing on the balcony that had none. Through all of this, he, the owner, is making $10,000 per month in rent, charging for parking, and there's another large house on the property that he's renting. Plus, he, the owner, has multiple homes, 90 tenants in all. This guy, the owner, was making tons of money. But somehow the sentiment among some of the roommates was, how could you do this to this poor old man, the owner? My case went to court and I got more time to find legal help. By the time the second hearing came along, another notice had been given as they got access to the entire house. Plus, they were still in violation and had not cured all of the problems, so they got fined daily. Then my court date was a week away, and his attorney started to try and negotiate with me. I was asking for $16,000, and they knew I was going to get it because they were going to lose. I ended up settling for $7,000 and 30 days to move out, plus 8 months of rent forgiveness. I just did what I had to do. Edit. Some people are calling this post fake because of the fact that I've referred to a male and a female in my post. The landlord/manager is female and the owner is male. It's pretty common for the owner of a home to hire someone to manage the properties, especially since this owner has 90 tenants. I'm not sure what's so suspicious about that. So now I've gone through and put notes throughout my posts to help the people with reading comprehension issues who are so stuck in every little detail that they're missing the big picture. Hope everyone can stop complaining about this now. Edit 2. I've learned a lot from the multiple times I've dealt with awful landlords. Living in Los Angeles with the huge problem of slumlords, you start to learn your rights and get sick of the crap and report it. So I will always withhold rent if my rights are being violated or the house is unsafe and the owner/landlord refuse to do anything about it. And for those that are saying he got off easy, it's so much easier to get rent forgiveness than money. Many people advise against withholding rent, but it has worked in my favor every single time because it either got the landlord to make repairs or it got the landlord to take me to court and I got a settlement and rent forgiveness. Example. In this case, it was much easier for the owner to swallow $7,000 plus 8 months of rent forgiveness than $15,000. I originally asked for $16,000, so that's just $1,000 less, in essence, than what I asked for. So no, he didn't get off easy here. It would be different if I was harmed by his neglect, but I wasn't. Plus, usually the only way you get money from an eviction case is by settling. Eviction judges are there to determine evictions, not give out money. Yes, there are exceptions, but I would have, most likely, won and not gotten evicted because I would have agreed to move. But to get money, you usually have to take them to court separately and get a new attorney. It's so much easier to settle. In fact, at the initial hearing, the judge orders you to go out in the hallway and negotiate before you go to plead your case. Judges much prefer when agreements are made. They also tend to throw out cases when the landlord and or their attorney is trying to be manipulative and or unreasonable and the tenant doesn't have legal representation. Judges hate to evict people, especially in Los Angeles. I do not understand why landlords are like this. It's literally so easy to be a likable landlord. I have a tenant who thought there was damp in one room. OMG, thank you for protecting my investment and letting me know. I'll take care of that right away. Cost me $300 now, but saved me thousands later. If you're not keeping some of your income back for maintenance, then frankly, you're a bad landlord who has short-sighted abilities. Hey, this stove looks like it's on its last legs. 3 burners aren't great. No problem, here's a new one. What day can we come out and put it in for you? Again, $400 fix to keep a tenant who is, and I cannot stress this enough, paying for this service. I keep a tenant who pays one time and just lives their life normally. Taking care of their property is also taking care of mine. They know their house is safe. Win-win. Am I the jerk for telling my dad his wife was the one who didn't want me on their family trip? Last year, my dad and I, 20 male, barely found each other. My mom went back to Mexico after I was born. We came back to the States when I was 7, and she didn't know how to find him. Luckily, I got matched with my uncle on Ancestry DNA, who's my dad's brother, so we went from there. He never knew about this whole time, and for over a year, we've been catching up and being in each other's lives. My dad has 2 kids with his wife. My younger brother is 8, and my sister is 3. We have hung out a lot, and I love them. We get excited seeing each other. My dad says they think it's cool about having an older brother. One with a car who can take them to the park in particular. Not gonna lie, with his wife, it's a little weird because we don't know how to address each other. Then obviously, this was a surprise to her. But we always say hi and small talk when we're around, but don't talk too much. So in a couple months, everyone in his family, like my grandparents, all my uncles and cousins on his side, want to go on a family vacation. Thing is, she doesn't want me to go with them, because it's the only tradition that's still the same from before I was around, and she knows his attention won't be fully on them if I'm there. She asks me to do her this one favor when I get to be around my dad any other day. So give her this time, but don't tell him she said anything. At first, I wasn't going to tell my dad she told me all this stuff, but after telling them that I can't go, he kept asking why. And then my grandparents and uncle were saying how come I can't go. They were willing to change which date to go on the vacation if I'm too busy on that day. It was really sweet that they wanted me to go, so I didn't know what else to do except tell my dad. He wasn't happy when I told him. He did say sorry for her making me feel unwelcome to go, but everyone wants me there, so don't worry about that. She literally came to my place the other day to tell me she hopes I'm happy. They got into it, and he doesn't want to talk to her right now because of what she did. Honestly, I've never seen her that mad or sad, but she was saying it's all my fault because she thought it was a reasonable request after having to put up with me being in their lives. The thing is, yeah, I'm glad my dad and me are getting to know each other. I've never had a dad before, so now it means a lot to have this relationship with him and everyone else in the family. She's his wife, so I get it can't always be about what I want. Now, because of telling him, I brought up all these problems, and I'm wondering if I'm the jerk for it. Not the jerk. She knew what she was asking was wrong, or she wouldn't have asked you to keep it a secret that she asked you not to go. She's incredibly selfish, and the fight between her and your dad is of her own making. Right? If it was such a reasonable request, then she shouldn't mind at all that OP told his father about it. She knows she's full of it. Not the jerk. It wasn't a reasonable request, and she knows that, which is why she asked you to keep it secret. She's mad at your father, not you, but she's taking it out on you. That's childish, disgusting behavior on her part. You and your father have a right to have a relationship. It's just sad she's so insecure in her relationship with him that she sees you as some sort of a threat to it. It sounds like you're a good person and you deserve better. Your dad is standing up for you. He cares about you. Keep that in mind going forward. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for not allowing mother-in-law to cook her husband a separate dinner when he didn't like what I made? Mother-in-law has some unhealthy tendencies in her marriage. She's obsessed with her husband. I'm talking about separation anxiety level obsessed, and she thinks the sun shines from him. He married her when my husband was a young teen and enabled her to relinquish custody of her kids. So for that alone, he is some knight in shining armor in mother-in-law's eyes. She takes on a very traditional role in their marriage and is very into cooking for him. Mother-in-law's husband is a nice guy. I'm not trying to knock him, but he is definitely used to being catered to. They came to visit recently, and I made dinner for the entire family, which is, of course, a lot of effort, and I expect it to be appreciated. Mother-in-law's husband, Jake, from now on, took one bite, made a face, was quiet for a minute, and then excused himself. When he came back to the table, mother-in-law drew a lot of attention to asking him what was wrong. He was clearly embarrassed, and I asked if he hated the food. He said he was sorry, but he couldn't eat that. I said that was fine, and he was welcome to make a sandwich or something. Mother-in-law went into the kitchen with him, and when I went to check, she was actually going to cook him a steak. I asked what she was doing and told her he could have a sandwich or a snack, but she isn't going to cook him a whole steak. I said he can really get his own food, so mother-in-law can sit down. Mother-in-law got upset, and I said that I get he doesn't like the food and that's okay, but I don't like the idea of his wife making him a replacement meal, so please sit down and he can make a sandwich. Mother-in-law sat down but was huffy. Jake made a sandwich, and when he came back, he stood in the doorway and made a dumb, confused face like he had no idea what went on. Later at the dinner, mother-in-law began teasing him by putting the food near him in his mouth. Him not liking it is one thing, but at this point, I was very insulted. Jake was acting freaked out and said he didn't even want to smell it and to stop. I was upset and asked her to leave the table. After dinner, mother-in-law berated me about being controlling, condescending, and treating them like kids. She said I'm a bad host for making everyone uncomfortable, and I should have let her make a mistake and ignored that they were joking. Jake jumped in and said he knows I'm being judgy about him not knowing how to make a sandwich and said I should worry about my own life because he has stuff he judges us for and that I'm a bad host for putting orange juice in the food, though no one had a problem but him. Not the jerk. I have a great aunt that will literally stop what she's doing to drive home to make her husband lunch every day. He's perfectly capable of making it himself, he just doesn't want to. She's always shocked when we don't want to center our day around her husband's lunch. Your mother-in-law went into your kitchen to cook her toddler husband your steak without asking you first. They were incredibly disrespectful on multiple levels. They both acted like kids, so you treated them like kids. I don't see the problem here. You shouldn't host them for dinner again without an apology. Who goes into someone else's kitchen and grabs a steak as a replacement meal? Like, of all the food, you grab possibly the most expensive item, then act shocked when the host doesn't want you to eat an expensive piece of meat when a sandwich would do? Entitled Karen Gets Cancelled. I'm a customer services manager for a very large entertainment/broadband company. Part of my job is listening to calls raised off to me by my agents in relations to complaints, etc. One of my agents had a customer on the line going mental about her daughter's phone and broadband services being restricted for not paying. Customer claims the last person she spoke to said her bill would be cleared and she didn't have to pay. So I listened to that call, and the customer is awful from the get-go, making fun of the advisor's name, the name being Merlin. She was making jokes about her being a wizard and how stupid her name was mainly, shouting at her for over an hour about how we've committed fraud because we won't read her daughter's bank details out on the call to her. Then she starts getting mad when the advisor tells her we couldn't take payments because 3 different credit cards were declined on the account in 3 different months. This goes on for an hour and 45 minutes, and I feel so bad for the advisor at this point. Customer starts going mental that her daughter never has credit cards, again that we've committed fraud, and she's coming to the agent's call center to find her. When the agent asks how we could possibly have committed fraud, the customer puts her foot in it, goes into a rage, and then tells her she let her daughter, who's only 17, go into the store and take the broadband contract with us, and the customer knew she had to be over 18, how it was our fault and blah 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 for not doing our checks and so on. Her daughter came on the line screaming just as bad as her too. Our customers need to be at least 18 to have contracts with us. We run basic debt checks to see if they have defaulted accounts with us, but nothing more. After raising the account off to the fraud team, I had the pleasure of calling them back to tell them they were canceled with immediate effect. Of course, she started screaming at me until I told her I wasn't here to be screamed at. It clearly wasn't up for discussion and that I'd be hanging up. If she had been nice and not acted like she was on a pedestal and untouchable, then the services wouldn't have been canceled. Don't you love when loudmouth Karens do themselves in like this? If you want a refund, you have to buy the product from us first. The day was like any average retail day. The store I work at is run relatively well, so the day passes by smoothly. That is, until about an hour before my shift ended, when a teenager comes up to my desk hoping to return some computer parts. This includes RAM, a motherboard, and a CPU. He doesn't have the receipts. However, receipts are not required as long as I can find the transactions in my point of sale system. Thankfully, he has an account and I'm able to find the RAM and motherboard. The RAM I was able to give him a refund on, no issue. However, the motherboard was about 50 days old. Our return policy is 30 days, but I was feeling nice. He is a kid after all, and I remember how confusing I found the world when I was his age, which was not that long ago, but feels like a lifetime. I told him I couldn't give him his money back, but he could exchange it for a new one, or get a gift card, which was standard practice for returns outside of 30 days, but within 60. Teen.
Well, I can't have a gift card. My dad will get mad.
Me. Okay, but I can't give you money back. You are well over the return period, so it's either gift card or an exchange. Kid.
I guess I'll get a new motherboard then.
Me. Which one do you want?
The same one, I guess.
At this point, I realized that I had forgotten why he wanted to return it. It wasn't required anymore, as any open product at this point would be sent back to the distributor for inspection anyway. Turns out, his computer wasn't working after he put it all together, so he needed new stuff. Kid.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not working.
Me. Okay. Did you want to go look around for other stuff? Or did you want me to call a salesman over to grab you another board?
Just give me a new one. Now, are you going to refund me for the CPU?
I hadn't gotten to the CPU yet, as I was still pretty new to returns, and I was doing them one at a time to make sure I didn't mess up. Now, of course, I have to be extra careful about returns, making sure the item is the correct one and all of that. Now, I have to be extra careful with CPU returns, so I opened up the package to do my checks, and I instantly realized why this customer's computer wasn't working. For those not in the know, the CPU is a small square chip that essentially acts as a computer's brain. Super important and extremely fragile piece of equipment. Depending on the brand of CPU, there may or may not be pins on the bottom that are essential for the functionality of both the CPU and the rest of the computer. They are extremely easy to bend and break. However, it's also extremely easy to not bend and break them, so there really isn't a good reason for someone to damage a CPU. This kid's CPU looked like he had taken a hammer to it. Me. Well, this is why your computer isn't working.
What?
The pins are smashed. Nothing at the computer can work with damage like this.
Oh, well, can I return it?
I didn't want to say anything yet because I felt bad for the kid, but we were unlikely to take it back due to the damage, and that he clearly bought it over 30 days ago, as I had yet to find the receipt for the CPU. It was a pretty expensive CPU, so I was hoping that management would make an exception and let him exchange it. So I kept looking for his receipt for the CPU. He didn't have a lot of transactions, so I figured I could just brute force it and go through them one at a time, and yet I couldn't find it. It wasn't on any of his receipts. Me. I'm not finding the CPU under your account. Is there another name it could be under? Kid.
We could try my dad's. His name is Dad.
I look up his name and no account shows up. Me. There's no account under your father's name.
Oh, he doesn't have an account. I'm the only one who shops here.
It's at this point that I realize that I'm dealing with a teen who is slightly stupider than your average teenager. However, I keep my composure and keep moving forward. I try not to treat people differently based on their intelligence. In a last-ditch effort, I check the transactions based on the CPU serial number. We have to manually attach transactions to accounts, and sometimes the cashiers neglect to do that for any number of reasons. However, when I scanned the serial number, nothing popped up. That was weird. Me. Did you buy this at this location or a different location?
Different location.
I admit, I should have asked that sooner, so I could have pulled up the remote search window from the get-go. However, when I pulled it up, it showed that he had never made any purchase at any of our other locations. He had only ever shopped at my store's location. Me, thinking that it could be a glitch in my system and hoping that I could access the more complete central server database. Which computer store location did you buy this from?
Oh, I didn't buy this from Computer Store. I bought this from Amazon.
I just looked at him silently. I didn't know how I got to this point. Why did he think we would take his CPU that he bought from Amazon? So I asked, Me, why are you trying to get a refund for a product you didn't even buy from here?
What do you mean?
You didn't give us the money for this. You gave it to Amazon. Therefore, we don't have money to give back to you. That's Amazon.
So, I want my money back.
Your money isn't here. Your money is at Amazon. If you want your money, you need to go to Amazon.
So you can't take care of it?
No, you didn't give us money for that CPU. That CPU has no monetary value here that I can give back to you.
Can I exchange it?
I'm afraid not. We don't do trade-ins. I assumed he was talking about a trade-in.
No, I want to exchange it.
Internally, I'm banging my head against a wall. How could a teen not understand the concept that a return can only go back to where he originally bought it from? Me. In order to do an exchange, you would have needed to buy the product here or at one of our other locations, but you didn't. You bought it at Amazon. There's nothing here that I can do for you. You need to send this back to Amazon.
So, you're not going to help me?
No. At this point, he leaves, and I'm relieved that he eventually understood. Or so I thought, because not even a minute later, he comes back with my manager.
He wouldn't let me return this and was mean to me. I want a refund.
Manager, I'm sorry about that, sir. Do you have the receipt?
No, but I bought it last month on Amazon.
I kid you not. That's what he said. Manager, why would I give you money for something that you didn't even buy from us?
Are you saying you won't give me a refund?
Manager, there is no refund to give, and nothing I can do for you. The teen then storms off to a salesman and says to them,
They were mean to me, called me names, and won't give me a refund for my item.
Salesman, that's not my department. It's their decision when it comes to refunds. The teen then storms off and tries this routine over and over again, each time getting more and more upset over the next 20 minutes until he is quite literally ugly crying to the store's general manager about how horrible everyone there was to him and how we won't give him a refund for his CPU. The general manager then asked him to wait and came to me. General manager, why won't you give him a refund for his CPU? At this point, I don't really care how old he is. Me, he didn't buy it from here. He bought it from Amazon. Ask him. The general manager did just that. When he heard that the teen did, in fact, buy the CPU from Amazon, the general manager essentially asked him why he thought that we'd take it and give him a refund. The teen said someone in the repairs department said that we'd take care of him. This turned out to be a misunderstanding or a lie, as the technician was only saying that I was the one who handled returns, not that I definitely, for sure, give him a refund. Eventually, the kid left, tears in his eyes and without a refund. He later left me a survey review that I made fun of him, threw his items on the floor, and refused to give him a refund. We have cameras. My general manager had that review dismissed. It's insanely annoying to get a survey review dismissed, so it shows just how ridiculous the general manager thought this situation was.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.